A lot of fun moments here in the last month or so of Wildcat Athletics, and we'll recap that a little bit. So I want to touch on some of our winter sports and our spring sports. We'll sort of do it in categories, if you will, so we'll get to that. Obviously, we had 4 conference championships this year, and so I'm certainly thankful for the efforts of those young people. Rifle won their conference championship again. That's no surprise for the repeat performance of many, many times. Men's tennis was with them in Auburn, Alabama, when we had the opportunity to win the SEC championship down there, defeated an undefeated Georgia team, and a remarkable come-from-behind victory. Came from behind in the semifinals against Tennessee. Came from behind in the finals against Georgia, again down 3-1, and an incredible performance by our guys. Was fortunate enough to be there with them. And again, I talk about the moments that are important in college athletics. Those are the things that if you're not there and you're not seeing it, you don't understand how important it is to them and how much effort they give. It was over 6 hours of tennis over 2 days for those guys, and what they accomplished was remarkable. So congrats to Cedric and his team. Men's soccer, Johan Sedegren won the conference championship with his guys this year, the #1 ranked team in the country going into the postseason, and a remarkable run by them. Undefeated through the only undefeated team in college soccer as they went into postseason play. Did not obviously get to the championship on the NCAA level, but won the conference championship, and certainly proud of him. And volleyball won their 6th straight conference championship under Coach Skinner, and just amazing stuff that they continue to do in the Southeastern Conference. So proud of them. We had great runs in other sports. If you looked postseason-wise, our gymnastics team finished in the top 6 in the country. Best finish in school history. Tim Garrison and his squad continue to improve. We're returning a lot of people off that squad for next year. Have a chance to do some remarkable things next year. I talked about men's tennis. Our stunt team, brand new to the deal. It was just named to an emerging sport in the NCAA. I know that doesn't catch a lot of headlines, but it's good for women's athletics as we continue to try and develop women's sports. It was named as an emerging sport. Our team finished 2nd in the country this year in the postseason competition, so I'm happy for them. And as we continue to grow that, we have got over 40 women on that team, and they are enjoying the growth of that sport. Softball, women's golf, men's track and field all competed incredibly well. But our women's track team finished 6th in the country in the outdoors. So went to Austin, Texas, had an opportunity to watch Messiah Russell turn in some of the remarkable performances. She was 2nd in both her individual events and 2nd in the 4x100 with our relay team. So individually, she contributed to our point total in a remarkable way. And so we continue to do very, very well in our track and field program under Lonnie's direction, and with the new facility going up, excited about where it's going. We spoke just briefly. I commented sort of on baseball. If you weren't at Kentucky Proud Park last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, it was a great time. 7,000 people came out to watch college baseball in a venue which was built just for that. Those kind of moments and that kind of a weekend and that kind of fun was really remarkable. So the baseball team, it was a fun run. Had an opportunity to be with them on multiple occasions, and what a great group of guys. Coach Mingione has put together a group that just cared about one another. And you hear in this world, and I said it a couple of times publicly, and I'll say it again, you hear a lot of stuff about NIL, about transfer portal, and about all of those things. And this was just a group of guys that cared about the game, and they loved the game of baseball. And when they talked about it in those terms. We get to play baseball a little bit longer. We have the opportunity to play baseball together. We have an opportunity to play the game that we love. And so it's not lost on me that is part of the essence of college sports. And so it was wonderful to watch them take that. The dog piles are wonderful. The fans were wonderful. Obviously, we went to Baton Rouge and fell a little bit short. Great physical and mental exertion was put forth in the regional, and I'm not sure what we had left by the time we got to Baton Rouge, but it wasn't without great effort that they did that, and really, really proud of those guys. And I'll touch on this and I'll move on. One of the great moments in my time was having the opportunity to hug those guys after the game. I wasn't initiated by any staff members. As the team was talking in left field, they broke away took care of their goodbyes with one another. And then one by one, Darren Williams sort of led it and began a processional through the staff and the coaches. And to have an opportunity to hug those guys and spend just a minute or two with about 30 guys who represented our program was really cool. And I love that. And that was, it was very evident to me how special those moments were together in the way we do college athletics. So I'll take that and move on from there. Other than to say that weekend in KPP, there's some in the back, and I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Scott Geisinger and the incredible work that all of our staff did. Those last 2 weekends of the year, we hosted Kentucky High School State Championships, 3 of them. We hosted the regional, and that doesn't happen by just showing up and opening up the gates. It happens because people are investing in time, walking away from their families and literally becoming zombies at the end of the weekend because they're so exhausted from everything they've done. So Scott, thanks for all you've done, and for all of our staff. Donnie, you guys were awesome, and appreciate that. It was a great reflection on Kentucky. It was good to have people in our community, hotels full, restaurants full. And that was a little bit of a challenge for us at the regional. That was well documented. But it also gave opportunity for our housing people on campus to shine and show that they could do a really, really nice job of converting something into something very special and very, very doable. And we showed another way you could do a regional. And so I was thankful for that. And then what we accommodated them, the hospitality that was afforded those teams when they came was outstanding. So I had several comments from the teams that came in thanking us for those efforts, and really, really appreciated that. So that was great. It was good for our community, and we're glad to have done it. Look forward to doing that again. Maybe not quite on such a busy weekend, so we'll work our way through that. Also, I want to recognize one of our staff members who just received a national award, Susan Lax. I don't think she's here, but I want to recognize Susan. She's been 25 years in this business of sports communications, and that is no easy task. I got started in that a long, long time ago. That was my first start in media relations, back when it wasn't called media relations. But I started back in that, and I know how difficult that is and how much time-consuming that is, and she has worked at it for 25 years. She is recognized with the Achievement Award for Excellence in Athletics Communications, and so congratulations to her. Happy for her. I also want to recognize 2 folks publicly. They were elected to the Kentucky Sports Hall of Fame with Kentucky ties. The voice of the Cats, and it's Tom Leach. So happy for Tom, and so deserving. He has given us great calls for many, many years, and just is an absolute pro. And I've been here 21 years, Preston 22 years, and he is a pro. And love the way he calls the games, the passion with which he does it, the love of the game, but more importantly, he does a great job of painting it blue just the right way. And I think that takes a real skill and a real art, and he does it incredibly well. So congrats to him. And Bridget DeVries was obviously with some Kentucky ties to us as well, and thankful for her contributions to sports in our state. Gosh, you know, we can't get there as we look to try and continue to bring young people to college sports. It's through folks like Bridget that we have an opportunity to do that. So thanks to her for all she's done in the landscape of college sports. A couple of things just as we sort of think about grouping some things together, messages about what our athletes are doing and some of the things that are going on in that space, and the outstanding things that they've done. We've done some things competitively. Some people have done some things in the last winter, spring sports we'll highlight here just briefly. Obviously, Oscar Sheboy is a consensus All-American for the 2nd year in a row. Super proud of Oscar and the things that he has accomplished, and wish him well. I just mentioned Masai Russell earlier. Incredible. A couple collegiate records in her time at Kentucky. And she has been a remarkable student athlete. And she's been the face of our women's track and field program this year in a variety of ways, and we'll touch on that in just a little bit. But then Lonnie Green was named Southeastern Region Coach of the Year, and extremely happy for Lonnie and the continued success that he brings our program. Women's swim and dive finished 19th and 28th respectively at the NCAA championships. It's the 6th consecutive season that our women have finished in the top 20 in the country. So thankful for that. And led by our All-Americans, Lainey Fry and Jensen Castle. Our team broke 11 tournament records, team and individual records during the tournaments they played in this year's, advancing to the NCAA regionals. So softball had 2 All-Americas in Kayla Kowalik and Aaron Koffel, and we've gone to 14 consecutive softball appearances, and I don't think that's lost on anybody what a great job Coach Lawson's done with our softball program. The Director's Cup came out, and everybody knows I track that a little bit, trying to pay attention. It sort of gives us strength to how deep our program is. For those that don't know how it's scored, you have a chance to score in 20 sports. And our program is ranked 20th right now going into the final sport of baseball. We'll probably finish 19th or 18th, somewhere in that range. It'll be the 6th consecutive year that we have been inside the top 20. There's only 11 schools in the country that have had that happen. So I hope that everybody understands that's something that speaks to the quality of our coaches and speaks to the efforts of our young people. And so we've been 6 straight years inside the top 20. And it's a point of pride for our program, and our coaches understand. We had 16 or 17 of our sports programs score, so we've had some folks that missed, and we need folks to make deeper runs, and that's part of what we're doing. And we do that, we'll be back to where we want to be inside that top 10 and pressing toward the top 5. So academically, I'll touch on that briefly. 126 athletes graduated in the spring. 126, that's the most ever in University of Kentucky athletic history. So I'm happy for them. Our GPA for the spring was 3.338. I've seen other schools in our league, they're talking about their GPAs and those kind of things. It's become happenstance and regularity for our folks to be in that 3.3, 3.4 range. And so the efforts in the classrooms are outstanding. In this era of talking about a lot of other things, it's clear that our young people have still stayed committed to the classroom. And that's important to us. That's 11 years in a row, 22 semesters in a row that we've been above a 3.0. 66 on our student athletes were on the Winter Sports, SEC Winter Sports Academic Honor Roll. That's the 5th most in the league, and the spring one will be announced here soon, so we'll have that soon. Academic progress rates, we released those scores, and all of our teams exceeded the mandated scores, and most of them were exceeded nationally where we needed to be. So we're in a great shape. We've never had a team with an academic an APR penalty. We're only one of 2 schools in the conference that have done that, us and Vanderbilt. So I feel confident that we'll continue that, and our coaches do a great job of making sure that our young people are returning and making progress toward a degree, as that's evidenced. 2 new coaches we've hired. If you haven't met them, they're both on board right now. Gator Todd is our new men's golf coach. He was here today. He couldn't be here today. He was out. He's obviously moving around a little bit, trying to get his family settled. Gator was the associate head coach at Vanderbilt University, who's the #1 ranked team in the country, and they had 2, I think, like 4 of the last 6 seasons they have been in the top 10 nationally. So obviously he is and had a great run at Vandy, but we're super excited to have him here at Kentucky and looking forward to him leading our men. And Shelly Jadon, Shelly joins us from James Madison University to be our women's tennis coach. Shelly has some unique ties to our community. Her father, Al Godwin, played football here in the late 60s with Wilbur Hackett. And so I was excited to be able to call Wilbur and talk to him about a family friend that came along to be a part of the Wildcat family. So Shelly's on board, moving her family as we speak to Kentucky and getting going with Wildcats. Facilities, quick construction updates. The Kroger Field playing surface that way, if you haven't been out there, it has been redone. It's replaced. It's beautiful. Like it. Obviously, it's getting some use during our summer camp with our football guys, and so we're working our way through that, getting all the kinks out. We'll have all of it ready to go for the fall, but it's in a good spot. The renovation of the Nutter Field House is expected to be done by the time football begins practice in August. We're in good space on that. Most of the turf is down, and we're working our way through that wall to wall. So the track is up and gone. It is wall to wall turf. Garage doors and ventilation has been added on the side. Some windows up top. For some lighting, new lighting in there. The netting will be what we've seen to give our team, some of our other teams, an opportunity to do some winter work in there. But it gives us wall to wall carpet in there, which is what we desperately needed to be able to run practices the way we wanted to get that done. We're fortunate to have had a lot of good weather in the recent months, so the indoor track and field facility that we are building where baseball used to be is on par for completion by the end of the year. November-ish, trying to get ready for indoor track and field season. If you've driven by there lately, it is a substantially large facility. It's going up, and it's going up quickly. So we're, again, thankful for really, really good weather, and that's underway. The Memorial Coliseum renovation is underway. So obviously you've seen construction fences that have gone up around there. We expect to have that substantially completed for competition by fall of 2024. So all of our teams, and I'll touch on that, have been displaced for the coming season. But with the remainder of the building, probably completion more spring of 25 when the building is completely open for business, so to speak. So that'll be that piece. Opportunities and challenges ahead. Several things we've got going on in the world. We'll talk about a little bit. The construction of Memorial Coliseum has challenged us to find a new place to play. So we'll be moving all of our Memorial Coliseum events to Rupp Arena. That will happen for the 23-24 competitive seasons. There will be a few women's basketball games we will not be able to play at Rupp Arena, and we've partnered with Transylvania University. They're going to help us with a few of those dates. They've been very gracious to us, and we appreciate the help of those folks trying to give us an opportunity to fill our schedule in those spots. So between them, by the time we get done with spring of 24, hopefully we'll be back in business and ready to come back to Memorial Coliseum for those events after that period of time. But looking forward to getting Memorial up and running. Then I'll touch on the alcohol sales of baseball. We had a pilot initiative this year at our baseball and softball venues with the sale of beer and seltzer. That went well. We had no real issues. It was a very enjoyable spring in terms of baseball at KPP, and fans enjoyed the amenities that were provided. And so in an effort to continue that, we're going to expand those sales to all of our athletic venues and events this year, football events and events at Rupp Arena and other sports venues. So we will do that. It'll be beer and seltzer sales. We'll have more details as we prepare for how we do that. But as we discussed with baseball and making the decision, we looked at fan experience, experience for our student athletes, and capacity to manage the events well. And I think our people will do that well. Obviously, there'll be much larger scale as we move into a couple other bigger venues. And so we've got some training and some getting ready to do. But I think our people have understood some of the challenges that have occurred other places, and we'll use those experiences plus the knowledge that we learned from this spring to be able to make sure we manage it correctly. So those are some of the factors we examined through the year in making the decision to expand it, and we'll continue to take steps, and gives us some time to prepare as we go into the fall. So thanks for your interest in that. I noticed that everybody got amazingly more busy on their stuff when I said that stuff than all the other things I said. You had no care, you just get to the good stuff. That's all they wanted. So I get it. You showed up for one thing today. I get you. I got it. Then recently, just to switch gears a little bit. Recently, we took a group of folks to Washington D.C. To visit with the Kentucky delegation of our state congressmen and senators to spend some time to talk about the landscape of college sports and what's going on in that space. Had an opportunity to take Coach Calipari and Rachel Wasson and myself. We went up there and had an opportunity to visit with several folks, including Leader McConnell in D.C. Discussed several things. They had obviously a lot of questions, some more informed about the issues than others. It's a really different space to be paying attention to. We talked about four things: standardizing the NIL legislation. We've got 50 states that are running it 50 different ways, and there's just no way that college athletics can continue to function in that way. So we asked for them to help us with that and work towards some kind of unified legislation that gives us an opportunity to talk about name, image, and likeness. We wanted to make sure that we don't talk about student athletes as employees. We don't think that's how this thing was designed, and we don't want it to move in that direction. There's complications on that on so many fronts. And so that was the second thing. Third thing we want to talk about was making sure that we had safe harbor for our college athletics. Every time we try and do something well for college athletics, there's litigation someplace that says, that certain things weren't done a certain way, or they weren't afforded opportunities in a certain way. And that's a challenge for us. We cannot be litigated into the ground where there's no money and no opportunity for us to be able to sustain the business or the enterprise of college athletics. We've got to find a way to be able to sustain that. And the fourth was to make sure that we talk about the growth of Title IX over the last 50 years. For anybody that's got sisters, daughters, granddaughters, we've made a lot of progress in 50 years in women's athletics. And Coach Lawson did an unbelievable job of articulating that to legislators, explaining why it was important to preserve opportunities for women to be able to play college sports. And so that was really, really important. We spent a lot of time. We got up there early in the morning and spent the whole day. It was closed with a reception that night with all the other SEC delegations that were up there with their state legislators. And we had an opportunity to visit probably 350 folks in a room for a couple of hours and just talk about the world we're in and how do we find a way through the difficult space we're in. NIL brings a lot of opportunities for our student athletes, and that's not the question. We're all for that. There are ways to maximize those opportunities. What NIL is not is it's not pay for play, and we've got to figure out a way to be able to do what it's supposed to do. We've had some incredible successes. Messiah Russell, she has epitomized what NIL is supposed to look like. Will Levis worked very hard at making sure he understood what NIL was, and he worked really hard at it. We had a basketball player do a national ad during March Madness, and that just goes to show if used in unique and special ways, it can be really, really good. And making sure that we support those endeavors and we help navigate those spaces. And there's some really, really good things about the NIL space, and there are also some really dangerous things. And we got to make sure that we protect our student athletes in both ends of that spectrum. Obviously positives, there's a trajectory that we want to make sure that we set one set of rules and expectations for everybody. We want to all be playing by the same rules. Then you get into enforcement and all that other kind of stuff, whether it's from the NCAA level or it's from a federal level, a lot of questions about all of that. Again, we've been in this area for 2 years now, and there's no clarity yet. It's becoming more muddled as we go. We've got to find our way through that with some help from some folks that are really good at trying to navigate difficult, complex problems. So the folks that we talked to, very receptive. They understood. They're balancing large portfolios, a lot of issues that they have on their plate and concerns. We've got to hope that they can help us find a way to work through some of these things too. At the end of the deal, a couple of things I want to make sure that we pay attention to out of all that. And I've said it, and I'll say it to our student athletes again and again. This thing is about education. When I say this thing, college athletics is about education, and it's about competition. Don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of that. It's about education and competition, putting diplomas in hands and rings on fingers. Right? That's what we're in this thing for. As we keep that foundation firmly strong, we build off of it, then we can do some really cool things for people. Unfortunately, we get to the top of a pyramid and we try and do it reverse, and it just won't stand on that point. It won't do it. So it's about education and competition, and we will stand on those principles here for a good long time. Okay? We have 23 sports. My goal is to keep all of them whole. 600 student athletes here, and so we get amazingly fixated on about 100 of them. We do, and you can all look to your phones and your pads and all that stuff like that and act like that's just a really good thing that floats over your head. 600 student athletes here. They were your children. You'd be concerned too. You want to make sure you do that well, and we want to make sure we do that well. I'm excited about our preparation for the fall. Football is the sales are going incredibly well. 37,000 plus, closing in on 37.5. We only had 38,000 some odd last year. We usually sell more as we get closer to kickoff. So I'm thankful for the support. Looking forward to a full Kroger field. It'll be really, really exciting, I think. So I'm looking forward to that. Team seems to be in good shape with the recruiting we've got going on, the retention of our players. We've had some key transfers come into our program, and so I think that'll be helpful to us. And the schedule for 2024 came out last night. That was in some areas must-see TV, and I think that was a fascinating look into the future of college football in the Southeastern Conference. So it will be an 8-game schedule for that one season of 2024, and there'll be conversations as we go to determine how we go from 2025 on. So comfortable with having that conversation. Thankful for at least this juncture. We're in 8 games for 2024. I think what's fascinating about the world that we're in is that rosters are so fluid in today's in today's landscape. And much like men's, women's basketball, the rosters take shape later in the deal. We're seeing that in every sport. It's not unusual. Everyone, I think, has seen a massive change in the way rosters are filling out in most sports. They come together late. They'll be dynamic. They'll be changing. We have great coaches and staffs, and I think that they've adjusted and adapted to the new world of college recruiting, and I'm excited about the upcoming seasons. The last three things I'd say is simply this. We talk about a lot of today. We tend to look in the rearview mirror, and we're 3 or 4 or 5 months in the rearview mirror, and we look about 2 or 3 months into the future, and we want to start forecasting football and those kind of things. I'll have that luxury for about a day, and then I have to start looking at other things about how we preserve the opportunities for our young people and how we lead our young people and the jobs we're trying to create and send our young people into and that sounds, everybody goes, that sounds really cool, right? It is about generational opportunity, about preserving opportunities for generations. It is about preserving generational wealth, and that means creating jobs and helping these young people to be able to provide for themselves and provide for their families as they go forward. It is about generational wealth, and it is about generational leadership. When I look around and we say, okay, who's leading this thing as we change leadership structures? I don't care what, pick a business, pick a university, pick a government, whatever you want to talk about, who is leading? And that's what we're creating here. We're creating those kind of people. And when they walk out of here, they walk out with purpose. Our president says, yeah, that's great. We walk out of stuff, and our president talks about all the time with leading lives of purpose. That's what we want to make sure we do that. It is about generational opportunity, generational wealth, and generational leadership. Those are 3 things that are critical to what I'm trying to teach here. And make no mistake about it, we do view ourselves as educators. We may not have faculty by our name, we may not have PhD by our name, but we are educators here, and our goal is to educate young people as they walk out of this program. Don't let that get lost. You go, oh, that's really cool. It is cool, because we have people here that do that incredibly well. Incredibly well. So with that, I'll stop and field your questions. I know you've got one. I'll give each of you one. Okay, good.
Questions?
So you say that the alcohol sales are starting this upcoming fall. Will that be ready the first fall football game of the fall season?
Yes.
Have you done any type of feasibility studies, or did you get any data that might predict the additional revenue this might bring into the school?
No, it's not a revenue decision, Jeff. So I appreciate that. We've not, I think that if you start making decisions on just revenue, there's other things that we would do. I say other things, other ways you price your things and do things differently. You make decisions based on the different things that you've got in your program you're trying to do, whether it's atmosphere at your games or amenities that your fans desire, and work your way through that. So it's not a financial decision for us, and frankly, I don't think that it's not, even if we make some money, it's not going to be life-changing for our program. So I don't want to ever let that drive what we do.
Mitch, what did you see either in the spring here at UK or at other SEC venues where alcohol was available that sort of allowed you to get to a comfortable place with this?
Yeah, keep in mind, this is not just a Mitch decision, okay? I think that it's an institutional decision that we make together to make sure. And I think that, obviously it was not allowed in our league for a long time. And then the rules, the policy changed, and we've been able to do that, serve that in our league for a bit. Other schools have worked their way in. There are still some schools as of this spring that had not made that decision to venture into this landscape. So we paid attention to other experiences other schools were going through, did our research with organizations that, about the effect it would have on crowds and safety, all of those pieces, and then just kept gathering information. And then we watched the experience at KPP to see how that was managed, and our fans were awesome. They were great. We had a lot of people that settled in and had a hot dog and something to drink and enjoyed some high-quality baseball for a good long time. But obviously the crowds at Kroger Field and at Rupp Arena will be bigger, and it's a much larger crowd with more people to manage, and we'll have to work our way through all that and make sure that we do a good job of that. Our folks are preparing very, very well right now and making sure that we're thoughtful about how we manage the crowd. And then obviously we've got training to do with people in concessionaires and points of sales and those things like that. That is all part of this conversation.
Will there be an alcohol game in 2024?
Yeah, at this point in time, contractually, that's where we are. Yeah, we set our schedules 5-6 years out. We try and we've got to be that far out in terms of finding games, just to be able to find games. So we've kept a scheduling pattern for us that has worked effectively well. And this was, I think we did a 2-for-1 on this one. We signed a 2-for-1 contract where they came here twice, we went there once. And that's one of those games. Having 8 home games has been good for us a couple times. We've been able to do that about every 2 to 3 years. We've been able to have 8 home games, and that's been good for us financially. It's helped us a lot. That has been you can call it a bonus, if you will, whatever you want to call it. It has been helpful to us. If you're in a 9-game set, I'm not sure how many times you get to do that. I don't know that you get to do that very often for us. Others may be able to manage that or find their way through that. I'm not sure that could happen for us in a 9-game schedule. 8-game schedule has a chance to help us a little bit. So, but we've got obviously some work to do to try and finalize that part of the schedule.
Along those lines, there were reports during the SEC meetings that on the 8-9 thing that Kentucky was one of those programs leading the way on winning the NCAA.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
Absolutely accurate. There's no mystery in that. I'm a believer in 8. I believe in 8 for a lot of reasons. I believe in 8 because I think ours is a hard league. The wear and tear on our student athletes. Those 4 games that we have a chance to schedule doesn't mean they're not difficult games, but the separation for an SEC game is a challenge. To non-conference game hits, you have a chance. If it's a non-conference game, that 9th game was a non-conference. You have a chance to be 16-0, 15-1, 14-2, 13-3. You do the math. If it's a conference game, you're 8-8, and there's no hiding. You've just picked up 8 losses for your league. So as you think about bowls, if you think about CFP, we can all talk about is really cool to bring other teams in. We're doing that right now. We can make the rotation in our league with 8 games. We can rotate through and play those teams that are all home and away. We can figure that out. We've got that in our system to be able to do that. So everybody gets to rotate through in a 4-year period of time. We can do that. So there's really no need to go to 9 to say that we're going to get a fresh face on our schedule. There's no need to do that. We can say that we're going to bring a Texas and Oklahoma into our league, and we're going to let them come to our place, or we're going to get to go theirs. As you saw on the schedule, next year we will go to Texas. Our fans will flock to that game at Texas. We had 12,000 people at A&M. We played at A&M. We will go to Austin, Texas. I'll assure you that. The Big Blue Nation will flow down there. It'll be good. That'll be good. That'll be a wonderful thing. It'll be good to have them come to our place. That'll be really, really good. But I will tell you, those are hard games. And when you do the math and you start thinking about, does a 10-2 team, does a 9-3 team get into the CFP championship when there's only 6 available slots in the at-large bids? It's a great question. That's a great question. So I think there's a lot of dynamics at play, and I think everybody has to look at it different. They look at it differently. For us, and for where we have built our program and the way we have strategically scheduled, and I'll give Mark Hill a lot of credit for the way we've scheduled, and Coach Stoops for the ability to be flexible in what we're doing. Those 2 pieces have allowed us to grow our program and do some things well. We've not shied away from playing. The conference schedule's it, and we've played Louisville, and we've not shied away from that. But 8 games worked well for us. So yeah, I was one of the folks lobbying for 8 games.
Last thing on that. There was also an ESPN report a day or 2 ago that the SEC was considering adding North Carolina, Virginia, whatever.
Do you personally have a, or does the university have a position on adding other teams?
I like our league. You know, I think I've been in the part of 3 expansions in our league now. Been here when we expanded with Arkansas, South Carolina. I've been here obviously when we expanded with Texas A&M and Missouri. And now I've been a part of the expansion of Oklahoma and Texas. And I think we're in a really, really good spot. College athletics is ever changing. And I think that there's obviously so many pieces to each individual school's needs and wants. But I think for our conference and where we are, we're in a really good place. And I think the competition's going forward. I'm anxious to let that settle in and watch that for a while.
You talked about 9-3 teams and whether that gets in with those at-large bids as playoff expansion is on the horizon. As you add these teams into the league, do you feel like it just bolsters the weight of the schedule? Obviously, we don't know how these teams are going to perform, but do you feel like it gives you guys a leg up, especially as
Our strength of schedule wasn't bad to begin with. Okay? I mean, I sit in the room. I'm on the CFP committee. I've seen the strength of schedules. We're not weak. We're fine in strength of schedule. You don't line up and play the teams we play and not have a really good strength of schedule. And I think that the success of our teams in CFP play and in bowl games is relatively fine. I don't think anybody's questioning the strength of our league. I think someone ran a stat. They said in the last 19, maybe 8, I don't know what the number was. It was in the last decade plus of national champions. I think all but one of them have come from an 8-conference game schedule league. And so obviously that has not hurt anyone. And clearly our league has been a participant at the highest level of college football for a good long time. And I don't think our strength of schedule is hurt by 8.
If the SEC does again, these are reports, they may be wrong, but Kentucky would get paired with South Carolina and you lose that annual rivalry with Tennessee.
Yeah, no, there's been no permanents have been established yet. None of that's been established yet. Next year is a 1-year schedule, and then after that we'll rework where we are. So it's literally a 1-year deal.
Mitch, speaking of Oklahoma and Texas, what impact on Kentucky will they have once they're in the league?
In what way?
Well, what do you think will be the biggest impact?
Yeah, I think, clearly you're getting some exciting matchups. I think that, they bring a breadth of sports programs. I mean, Texas is going to finish second in the Directors' Cup. I know you guys may not track that. But they won it last year and they're going to finish second this year. Oklahoma we've seen all their successes in softball. We've seen successes. Their football program's got an unbelievable tradition. They've had successes in a lot of other sports I could walk down. They've been great in gymnastics and some of that stuff. So they they have a depth of program that they're going to bring in and competitively welcome to the party. It is a heck of a competitive. It provides an unbelievable conference in depth. It brings 2 great fan bases. So I'm hopeful that maybe we get them in October. That'd be awesome. Let them come and experience Keeneland and football in October in Kentucky. That'd be awesome. Let them come and experience Rupp Arena and bring a couple new faces into Rupp Arena. It would be tremendous. So in terms of that. And then I think our other programs are going to, it does provide an incredible scheduling opportunities. So does challenge us a little bit geographically. I mean, it continues to push our boundaries a little bit. So travel costs, what happens then? They go up. So we'll have expenses. So we have expenses that go to it. Hopefully we'll have some revenues that offset that. It's not getting cheaper to do what we do in terms of travel and those kind of things. So that is, you got to watch that a little bit. But mind, our women's track team, I think we finished 10th or 11th in our league. What did we finish? 10th? 10th in the conference. We finished 6th in the country. How about that? We all know how it's scored and those kind of things, but that's pretty amazing when you think about it, to be able to have a top 5, top 10 team in your conference go finish in the top 5 or top 10 in the country. It just speaks to the strength of the league.
Mitch, a couple of basketball things. There's a report today that Aaron Bradshaw has a broken foot. Do you know anything about that?
I don't, the medical side of that is obviously protected. I'm going to protect the young man's medical piece. I've heard that there's a report out there like that, and I know our doctors are tracking on all his health, and I'm sure at the appropriate time that they'll give an update on his health status.
And also there's reports or talk that John's been working on an NIL, not a collective, but some sort of NIL, I don't know what you would call it, strategy or whatever, that would be unique. What do you know about that?
Yeah, I think that all coaches are working on strategies. I think that that's part of the reason why we need an overall landscape change. We need something, and there's nothing wrong with anything right now we're functioning within the law and within the rules. And so, but unfortunately there's 50 states with 50 sets of rules, and we've got to get to some uniformity in contract, uniformity in enforcement, uniformity in distribution, uniformity in representation. All of those kind of things are important, right? But what Cal's out there working on is something that, we've been really good about being able to take care of our student athletes in terms of NIL, making sure that they had opportunities, and we're doing a good job of giving them chances to use their name and their image and their likeness. And I think that the goal in that is exactly that, to create a group of folks that obviously would then give our young people a chance to use their resources and their assets effectively well.
Also, John talked a lot last year about new basketball practice facility.
Yeah.
There was a lot to talk about that. Has anything changed?
No, we're still working through the university's master plan. That'll always be our first pathway. Okay. The university's master plan comes up fairly regularly, and Mark Hill works with folks across campus and making sure that we're in that pipeline of conversation. The things that are right in front of us are the things that I mentioned earlier, construction-wise. Okay, that's what we've got to finish. We've got to work on those projects, and we've got to make sure that we're completely secure on those as we continue to look forward. But Mark works daily on our master plan of the university, making sure that we're thoughtful about where we're trying to go in the future, and we'll continue to talk to Cal about that, making sure that he's a part of those conversations.
Mitch, do you think anyone in this room will live long enough to see Texas A&M play football in Lexington?
That's a great question. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that one. That's a good one, yeah.
On the NIL piece, obviously anytime you get into the political world, it's a different world. You were up there. A lot of people around Congress have said they don't believe that anything is imminent on actual legislation. Do you feel confident something will come out of it?
Yeah, I think that I do know there's people working at it. I think there's 2 or 3 bills that are currently in draft status that are being looked at by both people in DC and people in college athletics. I had really good conversations with a couple of the folks drafting those bills. That was good. And I think that, you hear things about NIL skinny. You hear things about a skinny bill. You hear things about a different bill that does something completely different. I think there's going to have to be some work there's work to do, obviously. But I think that people are working at it really, really hard. I think President Baker, I'm hopeful that he's able to come in and do some things that probably haven't been done in the past. So that's his presence is certainly helpful in that. So I think, but again, being up there was a lot of folks very engaged in the conversation. So you can be a pessimist and say nothing will ever happen, or you can be an optimist and say we're going to work at it and find a solution. I choose to look at it as an optimist and say we're going to work at it and find a solution so we can continue, because opportunity is important. When you start talking about opportunity, and you start talking about Title IX, and you start talking about leadership and things like that in our young people, it changes the conversation. But I'm not going to sit here and think that the darkest days are ahead of us. I'd like to think that the brightest days are still ahead of us. We've got good young people that we're trying to protect.
Sports gambling is passed in legislature.
Yes.
It's going to go into effect sometime probably before the end of the year. We've already seen it a couple of places, there's been some problems with the
Yes.
college teams and betting. What kind of steps, what are you all doing with your student athletes?
We're fortunate, thank you for that. Fortunate that in the world of compliance, our SWA is Rachel Newman Baker, and Rachel was one of her areas of expertise when she was with the NCAA. She's from Berea, Kentucky, so we brought her home, and she's been with us 10 years now, I think. She's been close to 10 years with us. Her area of expertise was agents and gambling. So that is one of her expertise in her background. So we're fortunate we've got somebody with that kind of background on it. We're also bringing in somebody that is working with the conference office to talk to our student athletes and walk them through all of the different concepts and different things that they need to be careful of as we go into the year. So we'll take some really strong safeguards, we think. Clearly, it then becomes, obviously there's personal choice involved for a lot of young people and folks that are around it. Everything you hear, everything from game, the lines versus micro betting and all the different pieces. We understand all of it. There's nothing that's new to us in this conversation. We know how bets are routed. All we're learning, we've been apprised of all of this for a good long time, and now it's on our doorstep. And so those conversations are very, very important to protecting the integrity of our game and the sports that we play. And so as our young people come back in August, we'll be strong in that. We're bringing some folks in to visit with them and to visit with our staff at a pretty high level. Every school in the conference is doing that. The conference office is helping us with that, so I feel comfortable that there's significant attention being paid to it. So it is a great concern because I want to make sure that when we take the field, we take the court, we go to the diamond, whatever it happens to be, that we do it with the right hearts and the right thoughts, and we'll represent the game the right way. I never want to tarnish the games.
Any other questions? What else?
Thanks for your time. Have a great summer.